And this brings me to the meaning of our lives. So, what's the meaning of life for those of us who have left religion, you might ask? Well, instead of having a non-negotiable purpose handed down to us, we find it much more meaningful that we choose and we create our own purpose. We seek out and we create the life that is meaningful to us. As Dan Barker famously put it, asking, if there is no God, what is the purpose of life? Is like asking, if there is no master, whose slave shall I be? Leaving religion for me was not because, as some religious people might suggest, that I must have been angry at God or hated God. Quite the contrary. In my devoutly religious youth, I never had a problem with God in the abstract, or even with the classic problem of evil from philosophy. At the time that I began to question, all I had ever had in life were amazing opportunities ahead of me, including a really prodigious standing in my own religious community. I was also high school valedictorian. I was accepted into and attended the top engineering school in the country. The national missionary in charge had even visited my dad when I was 19 and asked if I was engaged, since, given my religious activism, many families in the community who had daughters were already interested in my availability for their daughters. At religious community functions, on several occasions, people whom I didn't even know would approach me and comment on how I was the Jamaat's youngest muballigh in Canada. I had a wonderful childhood, and my parents were always loving. They have always given everything of themselves for us, their children. Mine was always a happy home. There's no doubt about it. I have been blessed. But my own religious study of Islam stressed upon me that many people in the past had died for what they believed to be true, and that standing up for what is true, no matter how unpopular, how inconvenient, or how much it may negatively impact our own lives, was the higher moral virtue. This is why I ultimately reconciled with having chosen this much harder path. I did lose many opportunities in life as a result of choosing to follow my deepest convictions about what is true. It would have been much easier, much more advantageous socially, and much more opportunistic of me had I simply pretended to be a true believer, or even just a nominal Muslim. I want to help create a world where choosing the more honest path doesn't come with such a high social cost, with such a high price. Now, with respect to God, I have a metaphysical and philosophical take that allows for creative forces beyond space, time, and our reality to have informed our notions of time and existence. This is why I use the label agnostic deist. It's the religions of man that I have a problem with. It's the religions of man that we have before us all that all fall short of what would indeed be, if it exists, a truly awesome power. Now, there's no functional difference between deism and atheism in how we live our lives. Hence, I promote and align with atheism insofar as this position today is where the most coherent critique of religious truth claims happens to be coming from. I also recognize that there's an innate human need for all of us to not only take care of ourselves, but to serve others. And in this realization, we begin to understand the path for how we find meaning and purpose in our own lives. It is my humble opinion that when religion is removed from society, we leave a void in some respects. We do need to have available for everyone interested some structure and some guidance on how people can construct their own meaning, especially if they've never previously exercised any creative self-determination in their own lives. This is often the case with those who've been part of a religious flock for most or all of their lives. That said, I do believe that every one of us can benefit from a best practices for living guide that's not anchored to unsubstantiated claims. Whether we were born Muslim, born Christian, or born into any other religion, including having been born without religion, some structure can help us get off the ground in finding and in articulating our own purpose. Structure in this regard can also help build character. We can value constraints in our lives to a point as liberating, such as when we acknowledge phenomena like the paradox of choice, the limited impact of willpower alone, and the inverse relationship between habits and decision fatigue. What we don't need in creating our own meaning for life, or for telling us what is good and what is moral, are any of the scriptures ascribed to the angry and vindictive Abrahamic deity. Remember, it is this same Abrahamic deity who thought that stoning people to death was moral and necessary. That deity thought that raining down fire and brimstone on homosexuals was a-okay. He even boasts about doing so in the Quran.